Back. Like I said at the beginning of the program, we'll be looking at the revised CBN cash withdrawal policy. I have my guests joining me right now, and let me start by introducing them. The director to my right, yes, to my right is Haruna Bala Mustafa. He's the director, Banking Supervision Department at the Central Bank of Nigeria. Good morning to you, sir, and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you for having me.
He's the man that actually signed the letter that you saw. The director closer to him is Musa Itopa Jimoh, who is the director of Payment System Management, also at the Central Bank of Nigeria. Good morning, Mr. Jimoh, and welcome to the show. Okay, I think it would be nice for me to start with Mr. Mustafa. Your handwriting and your signature was on that memo. Why this policy at this time? Why is the Central Bank of Nigeria talking or bringing out this policy at this time? A lot of people have questioned the timeliness and what you want to achieve. In just a minute.
Thank you, Nancy, once again for having us on this program. This provides an opportunity for us to connect with Nigerians and explain that landmark decision. As you all know, currency management is one critical function of the Central Bank of Nigeria. And on the 26th of October, when the governor announced the new currency redesign, he signaled that it will also provide an opportunity to go forward with our, cashless, the implementation of our cashless policy. And so this is just part of that, effort to ensure that we implement the cashless policy and then have a nationwide rollout. As you all know, currency management comes at a very huge cost. Yes, cash is king, but cash is dinosaur in an evolving digital world. We have implemented a number of reforms that have enhanced the efficiency of our payment system. This is just one step, major step forward in that endeavor to ensure that we have a payment system that works for all of us, a payment system that is internationally recognized and domestically utilized. There are quite a number of underpinning reasons for the policy, but I will just hold my fire at this point in time, and then I'm available to answer more questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let me bring in Mr. Jimoh at this time and taking a look at critically at that letter in terms of the amounts now that people are open to get. POS 20,000 naira weekly, also ATM 20,000 naira weekly. Over the counter at the banks 100,000 naira. That's 20,000 naira a day, I beg your pardon, then 100,000 naira weekly. Why did you arrive at that? Why did you arrive at 20,000 naira really? And also taking a look at the denomination, 200 naira being the highest that you can get at the ATM. So that means if I want to get 20,000 naira, that would be like 100 notes or so.
You can get 100
yes,
notes. You can
100 notes,
get
yes.
200 notes. Like we have always said, the cashless policy is not new. This is almost 10 years since we started cashless policy.
Yeah, since 2012.
Exactly, and a lot of Nigerians are already digitized. Practically everyone in Nigeria has a phone, and we have pushed some of our banking and digital financial services.
Is it that all Nigerians are digitized, or many Nigerians have phones, but many of them are not digitized?
Okay, so
there are two different things.
Okay, yes. What I'm actually building up, the argument I'm building up is that a lot of Nigerians have phones. There are more people with phones than people with bank accounts. And that's why we're leveraging, that device that they have to push financial services. So we introduced the mobile money and all that. And we're also using that same particular device of the phone, to push some of the financial services, which is why there was this USSD service that's been introduced for those with smartphone. You have mobile app and all that. Now, coming back to the withdrawal, it's actually 20,000 naira daily and 100 weekly. And 400 monthly, because we need to round it up. It's about 400 monthly.
That's 400,000 naira.
Yes, monthly. That you can go to any of those devices, any of those channels, ATM, POS, or across the counter and make the withdrawal. And just like my colleague has said, it is in the spirit of driving the cashless policy. The implementation of the cashless policy had actually been in 6 states and FCT, and so now we are going nationwide because. We reckon with the fact that we now have adequate spread of agent outlets. The number one deterrent of financial inclusion had been, lack of touch points. distance between the consumers and the financial touch points. Now we have a lot of agent outlets, well over 1.4 million.
Around the country?
Around the country.
Okay.
And they're actually specially, distributed. It's not as if they're concentrated in one city. And that's the primary objective. In addition to that, we also, in 2020, about 2 years ago, we also introduced a niche bank called the Payment Service Bank. And the primary objective also is to deepen financial inclusion, to provide digital financial services, to push financial services to the nooks and crannies of this country. So we are, from all fronts, we are coming with all the things that Nigeria needs to get digitized. And only recently, last year, we launched the e-Naira, also to add to the array of channels and options that Nigerians have to have themselves digitized. And so it's coming now to revise, the cashless policy. I don't think it's something very strange. You go to shop outlets where some of the shops are even demanding that you pay electronically and all that. So it's not a culture that is new to Nigeria. Nobody should think that it's a new culture. I guess the question is, why are you limiting the withdrawal to
20,000 naira? Yes, I was coming to that.
And it is based on statistics. We look at what is the withdrawal pattern of Nigerians. And that's why I said, in a month, let's talk about a month. And I guess the people that we're talking about will be the downtrodden. Otherwise, you and I will not go and do cash. And if we say you have access to 400,000 naira in a month, come on, most of the time you do digital transaction. More than 90% of my transactions are digital for the people that I'm transferring money to, where I'm paying. You go to some outlets and they tell you there's only one counter for cash payment. Every other one is electronic. So that culture has come, and we need to move. Nigeria cannot be on the global map of payment system, driving financial system stability, and all we're talking about is being a cash-full economy. So
let me still stick with you a bit before I come back to Mr. Haruna. With the 200 naira notes being the highest that you can get at the ATM, does it mean that if I want like 500 naira note or 1,000 naira notes, can't I get them because if I don't want that volume of cash with me? That's the A part of the question. The B part of the question also is that with this, is the bank on the path of reducing the higher denomination printing? I hope you understand what I'm saying. That's reduction of the printing of 1,500 naira.
I understand you. If you want 500, the ATMs will make sure that only the 200, 150, any note that can be kept in the ATM will be there. The maximum will be 200 naira notes. And again, in the spirit of making sure that we are all cashless. If you want 500 naira bill or 1,000 naira bill, you go. That's why we provide for over-the-counter withdrawal. So you walk into the bank and ask for it. If they have, they'll give you.
Will the CBN supply them?
Yes, CBN will print as much as we can print.
Because if the banks don't have, they can't give.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Is what you give to the banks, they will give out.
Yes. Okay. But so that's it. Just go into the bank and ask for. But for example, you see, it's about the culture. You can't walk into a bank, for example, and say, I want 20 billion cash. People will begin to ask you, what exactly do you want to do with 20 billion cash? What exactly do you want to do with 20 billion naira cash that you cannot do electronically? And that's where, in part of that policy, we said, if you are going to do such heavy transaction, then you need to tell us the reason why you are withdrawing such money. Everybody, see, we have to work together as Nigerians. We know the problem that cash transactions have posed to us. A lot of security issues. A lot of Nigerians are exposed to a lot of fraud, counterfeits, pages for ransom. You and I know this. So it's all in the spirit of working together to save us from...
So do you think this would help the insecurity issues we're having?
I guess so.
I guess
so. Nigeria, we have to get to a point where we have accurate data in our planning. We need to plan. We are the monetary authority. We need to plan. We need statistics. We need accurate data to be able to project and plan. Everybody is talking about the high inflation. So how do we tame down inflation if we don't have accurate statistics to manage the entire economy? That's why we're going digital.
Okay, let me come to you, Mr. Mustafa. For the fact that you are Director of Banking Supervision, you sit on these banks, as it were, you monitor them every day. What Mr. Jimoh said earlier, what I can also infer from it is that if we're doing electronic transactions, we know that many electronic transactions fail due to like internet connection failure or what have you. But with this right now, how do you think that there will be a remediation of transaction failures? Because you are telling Nigerians now, stick with online banking. If I want to do a transaction, for example, and it doesn't go, and perhaps they debit me, and the person that I want to send money to haven't seen the money, and doesn't even allow me to leave the store. But I have sent the money, and there's no further cash, or I don't have any other bank account. How do you solve that?
Nancy, let me just take that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll take that from you. Yeah, it's all about, if anything, you know, there is this popular saying in the payment palace that if anything is electronic, if it is driven by computers, someday, somehow it will fail. There is no 100% system, you know, a 100% proof system. There is bound to be failure and all that. Our electricity fails. Sometimes even your phone, you know, can fail. It can hang and you have to reboot. So we anticipate that there is going to be failure, and that's why we make provision for dispute resolution. And so what happens today, if you do a transaction and the transaction is not completed, in which case a dispute or, you know, a dispense error arises, you walk into your bank. Mind you, we already configured the system such that if signal failure, the system is intelligent enough to do a quick reversal, so you can have your money instantly. But in the event that there's a communication disconnect, there is no way that transmission can, you know, execute the reversal. And so what we expect you to do is to go to your bank and lay a complaint. Now, the question is, how long will it take for my money to be given back to me? That's the concern of the public, which is why we reviewed down the dispute resolution timeline from 5 days to now a day. It used to take 5 days to 24 hours, exactly. So you are aware of that.
No, but sometimes it's not up to that 24 hours. Sometimes it's more than 24 hours, rather. That's what I wanted to say.
So if the transaction is within your bank, for example, I go to my bank ATM to withdraw money, and there's a dispense error. It's within the bank can resolve it within 24 hours. But if another bank is involved, then it is 48 hours. And we try to ensure and make sure that this happens, which is why we've now implemented a centralized dispute management system. So we can see all the disputes, all the claim, and ensure that the banks are complying to those timelines that we have given them. We put all of that in place.
So, yes. Mustafa, are the banks complying to that? Because even when you go on Twitter, for example, you see people sending messages, oh, bank, so this, I did a transaction, you've not done this. Some of the banks are, you know, they are quick to respond to their customers online, and perhaps some of them also try to resolve those problems. But in the case of that, do you really enforce, how do you check the banks so that you ensure that things like that don't happen? And with now, we are going to see more volume of transactions online. So how is the CBN also prepared to monitor those banks and ensure that those banks really do the work?
So as you all know, as you know, we have a very robust consumer protection function, and through that arrangement, customers that have one complaint or the other regarding their transactions have that platform to ventilate their complaints. And over the years, it will interest you to know that a lot of recovery have been made for consumers that have one complaint or the other. But back to your question around what are we going to do, given that with this new arrangement, we're going to have a huge, increase in terms of traffic. Since the policy was announced, we have been working. We are in this together with the banks, and we are making sure that all these issues that will arise will be addressed as they come. And like you rightly said, we've reduced the timelines for remediation of transactions, and this we're going to ensure that the banks comply with. And just rest assured that this is a new dawn, and Nigerians should just support the central bank in this new arrangement, and we will make sure that such things do not happen.
Okay, let me still stick with you a bit and bring in, I know it's not new if I mention it, that the bank, why is the bank looking at this policy at this time? We are close to 2023 elections, just a few months, perhaps about 3 months to 2023 elections. This might, curb vote buying and all of that. You are not able to check if you are going to be giving money to voters at the polling booths. Perhaps it's going to be transferred because you won't have access to more cash. How do you respond to that?
So I want us to take politics out of this arrangement. We are are political. It is unfair to impute political motives, to these well-intentioned policy. But of course, we are just going cashless. We are not saying there will be no cash at all. So folks have options, to use alternative channels, for their banking transactions. So it's not total elimination of cash. The only thing is, and like the governor, highlighted when he was making the announcement, this has enormous benefits, not only for the payment system, but the wider economy. So I think Nigerians should see it from that standpoint and support this process. Around the world, Nigeria is celebrated as a success story when it comes to the payment system. We've done a lot in terms of leapfrogging our payment system to a world-class system. The direct payment system is here. We go wherever you go, they use Nigeria as an example. So this is an effort to take things to a higher level, and I think Nigerians should just trust the central bank, and in the fullness of time, we will see the benefits manifest.
How about still sticking with you, Mr. Jimoh? I'll come to you. And let me just dump my question so that you start thinking about it, Mr. Jimoh, which is around rural population. Yeah. Access, we don't have banks in all rural areas. So just be thinking of your answer to me. But let me stick with Mr. Mustafa. In the memo which you signed, the later part of it, so many conditions if you want extra cash. BVN, national ID or driver's license and all of that. You need senior management official approval from your company. Then the CEO of your bank will sign. Why do so many stringent conditions? It's as if it's impossible. So it's going to deter people from, requesting for huge cash. That's one. Then the B part of it is also the 5% processing fee for an individual and 10% processing fee for a company.
So it is all in the spirit of the cashless policy. The more strictures you put in place that will discourage, folks, to use cash, the better. That will nudge people to use cashless options. And don't forget, the COVID situation is a case in point. During the COVID situation, many people could not go to the banks, and we saw an uptick in the use of, digital financial services. The fact that, we have those conditions in place, we believe will discourage the use of cash. And in any case, this is an opportunity that we need to leverage, to address, some of the, challenges that we currently face. And you talked about the issue of how can it help, to deal with the issue of security. By the time you have those, conditions complied with, you are able to have visibility in terms of what people use cash for, and that way it will also help, our, monetary policy objectives.
Okay, Mr. Jimoh, over to you concerning the question I asked.
Okay, which is about financial touch points in rural population. Just like I said, there are so many possibilities that CBN, in conjunction with the Bankers Committee and other payment service providers, have implemented. And we know that setting up branches in rural communities is very expensive, and you don't have that spread, which is why we came up with the concept of agent banking. And as I speak to you today, we have over 1,400,000 agents, spread.
That's 1,400,000, 1.4 million.
Yeah, 1.4 million, quite over that, and the number is actually increasing.
This is the figure. POS.
Yes, I'm talking, agent outlets. It's not just about POS. I'm talking about outlets where you can do cash in, cash out, where you can actually even go and open a bank account, where you can do transfers, where you can pay bills. So it's not just about, POS is a device that enables you to conduct financial transaction. But I'm talking about an outlet where you can do financial transaction. That's the agent outlet. And we have a spread of them in rural communities and all that. So for people who cannot go to the nearest bank branch, you can always walk out to any of those agents and then do your cash out if you want to, or digitize your money by doing a cash in and all that. So the spread, for me, the spread is quite enormous, and we're still building. And like I told you, we have license, we've given license to so many, payment service providers now, which we all refer to as fintech, to provide value-added services that will make it very easy and convenient for those in rural communities. For example, the USSD platform and all that. They're doing SMS banking, all kind of, options that will make it very easy for someone who is, or who you may consider as not technologically savvy, to be able to still conduct, transaction. We are also providing offline payment in rural communities where we know we don't have that digital penetration or availability of telecommunication signals. They can actually do offline transactions and all that. So all the encumbrances that will actually prevent the people in the village from conducting electronic transactions have actually, been eliminated, just to make sure that they are all inclusive.
How is the bank making sure that this communication gets down to the grassroots? Because we are here, we are elites, as it were. Not everyone watches the television, not everyone even listens to a radio. There are some people in the rural areas that may not even have heard that 200 naira is being redesigned, or 500 naira, 1,000 naira is being redesigned as we speak. So how is the bank ensuring that communication gets to them, and they are also financially included by having access to many of the agent bankers which the CBN have licensed?
Okay, since we started the journey of digitizing the economy and providing electronic payment services, there has been consistent campaign we take to grassroots, using local government chairmen, using different kinds of associations.
Are you using local languages?
Yes, yes. Oh. We actually have a cashless booklet I could share with you. Okay. We actually have a cashless booklet on frequently asked questions in the three local languages: Yoruba, Hausa, Igbo, and then Pidgin.
Okay.
We actually have that, which we have been distributing and consistently engaging different associations just to make sure that the message is passed. Which is why, if you check today, the number of accounts that have been opened, account ownership has increased in Nigeria. Practically everybody has a bank account. When I say everybody, in large number, I know, in large number. Most people that they used to demand cash from you today, what do? They simply send you an SMS message with their account number. Anybody who wants money now, you say, give me your account number. Everybody has been forced to open, bank account or mobile, money wallet, because they know that the money that you're going to send is going to be in digital form. So culturally, Nigeria has moved from, a cash-based economy to a cashless society.
Okay, what happens to when you do online transactions? For example, you go to a supermarket, for example, majority of supermarkets will say, oh, we don't do transfer. Don't transfer to us. Take POS. Does that mean that I can pay higher denomination with my ATM, that's my debit card, in that POS machine? I hope you understand what I'm saying.
There's no limit to what you can do with electronic transaction.
Okay,
it's your money.
Okay, that's one. Then the second part which I'm going to is that a lot of people are also of the view that it will slow business transactions. How? For example, if I transfer money and that person doesn't get it, they won't allow me to leave the store until, do you understand? So the velocity of money transactions will be slower. No.
So I want us to know that it's not because of the sudden release of the cashless policy, which has been there, that will now come and create encumbrances on the payment infrastructure.
There's more volume now.
Yeah, exactly. And we are already said. Remember, I was in this studio during the COVID, and I told you that the COVID gave us an opportunity to test our systems, to test our failover, our backup system, to actually see the resilience of our payment infrastructure, because more transaction actually came digitally. People are not doing cash. In fact, a lot of people are not even going to the ATM to withdraw money because you don't want to touch the physical object that every fingerprint has touched. And so we actually tested and we saw the resilience of the payment system and the banking infrastructure. I think the banks are ready to carry more traffic than what they usually carry. Yes, I think so. And we have more payment service providers now. We have more aggregators. We have more fintechs. So the transaction volume is actually distributed. So you don't have that high concentration on one institution anymore, because transactions are distributed based on the number of service providers that we have. I think the banks are ready. Okay,
just very quickly, Mr. Mustafa, how will this affect banks' profitability moving forward, and the issue of even physical branches? Which Mr. Jimoh mentioned earlier, we're even seeing banks are not having so many branches anymore. As we advance with this cashless policy, what do you foresee, or what does the bank foresee in terms of banks not having physical branches? And do you also think that some of these fintech companies that are coming up could also be a threat also to to the brick and mortar banks which you people regulate?
So yes, it's obviously going to have an impact on banks' bottom line, and for the obvious reason that banks incur a lot of costs and expenses in terms of managing currency. That would be obviated by the time these arrangement takes becomes fully operational. So we will expect to see a positive impact on banks' profitability, and of course, the efficiency of their operations, which will also rub off positively on their bottom line. In terms of, it is an evolving industry. We are seeing, new trends in terms of increasing digitalization of financial services, and so there is the emphasis on brick and mortar, and that is the, emerging trend, even globally. So, and of course, that will rub off positively on the efficiency of banks' operations. So, we see the landscape changing in a very fundamental way going forward, and ultimately, it will be the financial system and the economy that will benefit. And of course, this will pass on to Nigerians in terms of, the way they do their transactions.
Okay, finally, Mr. Jimoh, the date that it will take off, January 9th, 2023, any intention of extending? Because I interviewed a guest and he said he knows that you will extend. At least for the information to permeate. That's the first part of the question. Then what is the bank looking at in terms of financial inclusion rate? Because where we are now, we're at, I think, over 60% financial inclusion rate in Nigeria. With this, what do you foresee? Very quickly.
See, let me say something. Again, I'll repeat. Cashless policy, cashless implementation, opening electronic access for payments and financial services is not new in Nigeria. Going to an ATM to withdraw money is not new. So we're not going to extend anything for people to learn how to withdraw money, right? Nobody is asking that, oh, CBN, we don't know how to withdraw money from an ATM, please, extend it. Or, oh, CBN, we don't even know how to go across over the counter to withdraw money. We don't know how to go to a POS, agent to withdraw money. That's not what Nigerians are asking for. It's just the limit. So what is it, what is it that we need to educate people about for December 9 to kick off? Because what we have just simply done is to say, the quantum of naira notes that you can reduce, that you can withdraw from an ATM or a POS has come down, period. There is nothing new that anybody is going to learn in this country. Nothing new. So what would cause the postponement of I really don't know. But of course, I can't rule out the possibility of such. I mean, it can happen, depending on the environmental factors. But I'm saying CBN will not on its own change this date on account of the fact that people are not educated or enlightened.
Because we need to do more in terms of enlightenment.
Enlightenment, exactly. In fact, let me tell you, if you go to an ATM, I would imagine from that, if you go to an ATM will display and say the maximum you can withdraw from this ATM is 20,000 naira. So you already know. There is nothing, what kind of sensitization do we need to do again? On the amount you can withdraw. We are not changing the process. The withdrawal process remains same. Dispute resolution remains same. The channels remain same.
Okay, financial inclusion rate, any prediction or percentage rate you're looking at?
Yeah, our target is 95% by the year 2025, and this will also culminate into driving that objective.
Okay. I guess we'll have a part 2 of this on a later date, so that we'll talk about even the national domestic card which the CBN is trying to project and see how this all ties in. But that's the much we can take on today's edition of the program. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming.
Thank you very much.
All right, I've been speaking with Haruna Bala Mustafa, who is the Director of Banking Supervision at Department at the Central Bank of Nigeria, to my immediate right. Like I said at the beginning of the program, he's the man that signed that letter that you saw circulating. Musa Itopa Jimoh is the Director of Payment System Management at the Central Bank of Nigeria. That's the man in charge of the payment system in Nigeria. That's the much we can take on today's edition of the program. I hope you've been educated a bit concerning this revised cash withdrawal policy by the Central Bank of Nigeria. Continue to watch the show. We'll continue to enlighten you even as January 9th date comes closer, as well as the January 31 date next year for you to have access to the new notes. I am Nancy Naji. Be the best you can be and be that change that you want to see. Bye now.